plus 15 holes, overtime, timeouts. Did we mention the green moves? High tech, higher stakes, and you get to watch it all, baby. Keep up. It's golf.
You're watching Rogers TV.
Join me over coffee as we delve into topics that affect our everyday lives. And today I'm in conversation with Tim Nicholls Harrison, the CEO and Chief Librarian of the Owen Sound and North Grey Union Public Library. And our conversation is going to center around why libraries are important in all communities and how they help to build communities. So we have lots to talk about. Yeah. Thank you, Tim, and welcome. And I'm so pleased that you are my first guest on my first show of Over Coffee.
Oh, thank you, Mary Jane. What a wonderful opportunity to talk about libraries and their importance. Yeah.
Well, I've been doing a lot of reading outside of the information that you sent me today. And I think, even though I have an intimate knowledge of our current library, the Owen Sound Library, we still think of libraries in this kind of general feeling that, you know, we lend books, we have services, and we have events. But really, Tim, well, I think let's get down to the nitty-gritties of what libraries are now doing in their expanded role in our community.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. I think a lot of people don't realize all the things that are available at a library and the services and roles that libraries have in each community, depending upon the specific library. Part of that comes from, we experience libraries at moments in our life. So we might be a young mom, and so we're taking our little kids to a story program. So we're really not thinking about other services or what's happening for the library. Or we're a retiree and we're accessing the elder law program that's happening in conjunction with community legal aid right now. So you're going for a specific thing, or you've heard about something at the library, but you're not really aware of all of the possibilities and how a library needs to be that resource for everybody. So we're all constantly working to say, is this working for our community? What service or need is not being met? Does the library have a role in that, in helping with that need? And so if you go back to the origins of libraries, they were owned by the rich and the elite. That you know, books weren't something that everybody had. And back before the press, the Gutenberg press, they were hand scribed, and that was usually done by religious orders. And if you accessed the book, it was chained to a desk or a shelf, and you couldn't take it out. And then over time, we moved to a concept where we said, hey, this information should be available to everybody. And that really became that public library movement. But you know, that's only 200 years old. You know, here we are in 2024. It was in 1870 that we started to see public library acts and the movement to say that there is a responsibility in a community, there's a responsibility to make those materials available for everyone. And we didn't have fiction collections at the start of libraries because fiction wasn't something that people tended to read. Sir Walter Scott's one of the first fiction writers. It's a very interesting concept. So it's constantly evolving. And as libraries have been involved in that, one of the challenges is making material accessible to the community. So you have to be at the back end documenting what the material is, cataloging it, putting it in an order, building structures to be able to loan it, to be able to get it back, creating ways that will all work. And what that's meant is that libraries have been early innovators with technology, because lots of people may not encounter a technology, but we've already been working with it at the library all the way back. Because we've needed to deal with the data and manage the content and make it as accessible as possible to everybody. So coming from that end of things, the library has a really unique role in that because we're early adopters and for our own back end need to utilize technology, we also understand the gaps as that technology is introduced and how we can make it more accessible to the public as a whole to be able to use and become comfortable with it.
Well, one of the pieces about technology is that in the beginning, and perhaps still, not everyone had access to technology in their homes.
Right.
And so the library was the hub as to where you could actually set up an email account and connect with family and friends in other communities. And so the technology piece. So really what I'm hearing is that libraries are leaders and they provide leadership in a community.
Yeah, I like to think of it though as we are the foundation of what we think of as democratic society. Mm-hmm. That concept that information should be shared and accessible to everybody. And so we have a responsibility to make it accessible, to help people find it, and to facilitate that. So while it may seem that we're leading, we're really taking the pulse of the community. And we're trying to say, oh, is there a way that this can be done? And how do we, if we're that foundation institution, how do we turn that institutional power to be able to help everyone? Mm-hmm. So it's not just benefiting a few people, but how do we utilize it so that everyone in our community grows and has an opportunity to improve themselves, right? And it's wonderful that people like Andrew Carnegie saw that and saw the potential of that and actually said, like, went to towns and said, you know what, if you want to build a library, we will give you the money for the building, but you have to pay for the resources and the staffing. And I really wish there were more people doing that now because there's still a big need for that in many communities. But it was an incredible foresight to see that there is a way to make this possible, around the world. And we've benefited here from Owen Sound from that.
Well, I think too that that in order to take the pulse of the community, we are seeing a more diverse community. And sometimes the library is the first stop for someone coming in, whether they're have grown up in Canada and moved here like us, or whether you're moving from another country to this community, you pop into the library to find out more information about the community. But I think what is really critical here is that they are welcome. They are respected. They are treated with dignity. They are in a comfortable, safe place when you go to the library.
That's really a fundamental concept, is that openness for everybody, and no matter who they are in the community, how long they've been here, how much money they have, anything in their life, that we're a place to be able to access and get the supports, whatever those supports are, that they need to do what they want in their life, right? It's not about a prescribed path. It's helping people discover the path that works for them.
Well, not only is it around education, I mean, books are so important, but it's also that feeling of being part of the community. We belong. I belong here, from wherever they have come from, whether it's down the street or whether it's across the world. I belong here. And I think that I have a little quote here. And what's your opinion on this? Because I think I already know. Okay. Libraries are one of the last non-commercial spaces where everyone is welcome.
Yeah, that's a key piece, right? In our world now, so many places that you go to are, by the nature of our capitalist society, a requirement. You know, there's only so much space in that there. People can only be there so long. There, you have to pay a certain amount of money or continue to do something to be able to access it. And public libraries are one of the few places left in a city that people can just come in, sit down, and not be harassed, right? And not be questioning about why they're there. They're there because it is a public space. And even when you think of the nature of in some communities, they've actually done things to make like city park benches more uncomfortable for people to sit on or sleep on or do things. And that's not the case at a library. You know, we really understand that you could be someone who's working multiple jobs, and you're going to come in and sit at a table, and you put your head down for a few minutes, or you're a student, you've been studying exams, or you're somebody who's been outside in the cold and you want to be able to come in and be warm and maybe rest for a little while. You can't lie down on the floors or bring a sleeping bag, but in general, that concept that, yeah, the space is welcoming, and of course we want everyone to feel comfortable, and our staff are really well trained to work with everyone in our community and to make it be safe across that spectrum of people, you know, so that young mom that I was talking about earlier, or the children should feel safe in that space as much as anyone else. And that's a really fine balancing act, but I think overall libraries do a good job of that.
Well, I think as they're doing their day-to-day roles and responsibilities, they're actually building communities.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the events that are planned are open to everyone. There isn't necessarily a fee or a nominal fee.
Yeah.
And if you can't pay that fee, I'm sure there's a way of
Sure.
maneuvering that for families. But at the same time, the events become multicultural.
Yep. Yeah. And, you know, when we talk about it, sometimes it sounds like this is an initiative from the library, but it's not. It's an initiative from the community, because it's the good people in our community who are contributing in their own ways, right? Whether it's volunteering at the library or doing other things. And lots of times people will come to us and they'll say, hey, I have this idea. Can we do this? Mm-hmm. And that's the driving force, right? That's the community need we're meeting. We're not like, let me give you a really good example. The Georgian Bluffs Climate Action Team.
Yes.
They came to us and said, hey, we have this idea that we would like to do a repair cafe.
Oh, I love the repair cafe.
Yeah. Have you taken something there?
My antique marble lamp is now saved because it was repaired on site. We thought it was doomed.
Isn't that wonderful? Yeah. So here's a really perfect example. There are libraries who have initiated repair cafes where they've started the whole thing and done it. For our library, our size, that, as much as we would love to see that happen, that's beyond what we were capable of doing, right? To say, all right, we're going to just take this on and do all of it. But because there was a committed group of people who had the vision to say, we want to do this, can we partner with the library? We were able to say, of course, we would love to. Mm-hmm. And we put things into place, like everyone who volunteers at the Repair Cafe is a library volunteer. Yeah. So we put them through like our volunteer piece. They have, as volunteers at the library, we do police checks and those type of things. So we covered all that end of things and provided that support. They're getting their key support around the actual tasks from the people from the Repair Cafe, from those other volunteers. But we wouldn't have been able to do that. And so here's a fabulous program operating at our library. And some people go, oh, that's a library program. No, it's more than that. And you go, the elder law one that I talked about, that's again, we were able to reach out to Angela and say, hey, can you come in and do this work? And she is, right?
Yes.
That's part of her mandate.
And I'm just going to do a little caveat here. Angela is going to be coming on the show in January.
Oh, fabulous.
Yes.
She's wonderful.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Because this is a topic that people sit around their tables and they sort of try to avoid some of that legal stuff.
Yeah.
But it needs to be out in the open. So the library is bringing in all kinds of speakers and
we're using our
topics.
institutional resources to amplify what people want to see in the community by making those partnerships and recognizing the value of those contributions of those other people. And it's really cool to be able to see that happening. And I know our staff really appreciate it as well, doing that networking and building those partnerships.
Well, I can see great pride that libraries take, but they also are under a little bit of pressure because not all libraries in all communities have the resources to be able to be as expansive.
Yeah, no, that's true. And even for us, we're a library that's 30 to 50,000 people. That's our population base. So our comparator libraries are places like Timmins, Woodstock, Innisfil, Aurelia. And we are one of the libraries in Ontario that are funded the lowest per household by our municipalities. So we're funded by Chatsworth, Georgian Bluffs, and Owen Sound. But the household rate that is contributed to libraries, we're one of the lowest in Ontario for our size group, 30 to 50,000 people. And we probably are 4 to 5 full-time staff down from other libraries. So we have a real challenge in ourselves trying to meet that service delivery and what people want. And I can tell you that when we actually compare against other libraries, the amount of programming we do is significantly lower. Now, if you look at all the things we're doing, that feels hard to believe.
I'm very surprised at that.
I know.
Because I read the newsletter.
Yeah.
I see. And I got Scrabble on Friday afternoons on my calendar.
Oh, in January.
In January.
Not yet. Please wait. Yeah, that's it. Again, that's just a drop-in that we're doing for the community on Friday afternoons if people want to come in and play a game of Scrabble. We work with the Owen Sound Chess Club, and they have on Wednesday evenings from 5:30 to 8 o'clock, people can drop in and play chess. So those are neat opportunities in the community. Yeah.
And I'm going to, because I've been doing some reading, now the books that I've been reading are novels.
Right.
But this one particular book is based on real people and a real event. And this is called The Paris Library.
Oh, okay. I haven't read that one. Yeah.
Okay. It was the American library during the Second World War, located in Paris, when Paris was occupied.
Okay.
And so everyone in the library was so committed to providing services to everyone. Everyone was welcome, even though the regime at that time who had taken over France said, these are certain population that is not to enter. So the library staff took it upon themselves and risked their lives to deliver books to everyone who wanted them. Wow. And so there is a greater good, I think, that libraries take on in communities. And this was a book that was written by Janet S. Charles. And the last quote in this book is, "What can we do to ensure that libraries and learning are accessible to all, and that all people are treated with dignity and compassion?" And this was in a time of crisis in France at the time. And what impressed me the most, I mean, even though there's a novel written around it based on true fact, is the fact that that library wasn't shutting down for anything.
Yeah. It was very interesting during the pandemic. We had a number of opportunities where we had to make adjustments to our service, but we wanted to continue. And after the initial, when everything closed down for a couple weeks right at the start, after that, the effort was to look at how do we continue to make those services available, because it sounds strange, but for some people, being able to read that book or being able made a difference to how they were able to carry on in their life. I'm not trying to overplay that, but there is a value in people wanting to be able to continue some of the things. So we pivoted, everybody pivoted, to curbside service, right? And that was very challenging for us as a process. And we went to quarantine books, and tell you a really bizarre story about that, because the books didn't need to be quarantined, but we didn't know that at the beginning, and because we started quarantining the books, it actually became hard to stop quarantining the books, because the provincial government decided that doing it was better than not doing it, even though the science didn't show that. But it was a step. So we put a number of things. We did a lot of Zoom presentations and ways to do things. The United Way reached out to us and said, could we be a venue to be able to share test kits? And so we were one of the places that people routinely came to get them. There just was a number of factors that weren't, if you'd asked us 3 months before, hey, what do you think about having, testing kits at the library? We'd be going, really? Is there a need for that? Like, couldn't someone else have it? But because we're a library, and it's that hub idea, again, people look and say, hey, well, maybe there's a way we can do this through the library. Maybe this is an access point. And that's really cool. And I think in the story that you shared, that continuation of service allows people to remember, hold on to the way things were, and work to make it back the way it should be, right?
Well, I think it's, standing up for injustice, I think, is important on all levels.
Yeah.
And I think that when libraries are inclusive, when they draw different cultures and different communities into the library to celebrate the fact that they are community members, I think that is really important, and it becomes accessible to all.
Yeah, and again, it's because we are willing to learn and we're willing to acknowledge our mistakes and the things that we can do better, right? It's not saying we know how to do it. It's saying we're willing to try to work through this and navigate a better path. And there's still a lot of work we need to do with our Indigenous communities, right?
Oh, yes.
That's certainly more that we can do as a library. There's more that we can be doing, striving to do, even working with our senior population. It's a challenging one because lots of times people feel uncomfortable with the gaps that are there in how they access the information, so they may not come and access it, right? So we need to better understand that so we can do a better job.
Well, I think libraries have evolved. I mean, I started with the bookmobile in Scarborough. And so libraries have evolved in the community to, as you say, take the pulse. What does the community need? How can we build on what those needs are, and how can we be inclusive? And so what I appreciate very much about access to our library, Owen Sound Library, is that it really starts to reflect the community. Like that, I think, is really key. And it's the first point of contact for many people coming in. And even though you were saying you're reacting to the community, I think I think, Tim, we really need to put in there that there is some leadership here. There's leadership, the driving force behind, okay, how can we do this? So the leadership part of it, I do think, is not only, driving the engine a little bit, but also responding to what's coming. And now we're having to deal with some social services. I mean, even when I was at the library, we did the mental health training. And so now staff are being trained in some of those social service aspects because the needs of the clients coming, or patrons coming into the library, are now vastly more than perhaps when they were decades ago, when you just came in to borrow a book. So you have that as well. And then you've had to expand your role to fill in the gaps. Yes.
And I think, again, that's the good thing about libraries, is that we're able to use our institutional presence to address some of these issues and make it better for the community. But part of that, and part of that leadership, again, is the phenomenal staff we have, the contribution from individual volunteers who say, yes, I want to be a part of this, or is there a role that I can take on? Our board, like our library board, made up of elected officials and appointed officials from those municipalities and from the Meaford Public Library Board, really are incredible leaders in being able to say, like, as staff, we'll come with ideas, or we'll say, hey, is this where we're going? But we also have a board that stands behind that and says, yes, this is the good work of the library, right? And so that's significant. And again, understanding the challenging financial times that everybody's in, it's wonderful that the library exists as a place that people can go to and not have to spend money, right? Yeah.
That's really important. But what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, Tim, is that libraries are an investment into the future.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that.
We've got 1 minute.
So in the past couple of years, libraries have done a process called Volt, and they found, we haven't done it for our library yet, it's one of the tasks we're doing next year, but they found that a minimum of every dollar invested in the library shows a value of over $3 to the local community in economic development and value.
Well, it's not only an investment in dollars; it's investment in confidence and future. It's and knowledge and participation and community spirit. So the investment is just huge beyond those $3. Well, this has been such a treat, Tim.
That went so fast. I didn't even have a drink. Thank you so much.
Oh, wow. Well, I really appreciate that you are my first guest on Over Coffee. And I'm hoping that everyone will join me next time on Over Coffee for more in-depth conversations that affect the everyday living in our communities.
This program is brought to you by Rogers Xfinity, connecting you to more of what you love. Visit Rogers.com for more details. Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.